guys, and welcome back to the Virtual Reality Show, where we talk about any and all things related to virtual reality inside virtual reality. I'm your host, PHIA. Last week, I posted my Devouring Let's Play, a horror game made completely in SDK2 of VRChat. And that is incredible. An entire indie game inside VRChat. And it was one of the best experiences I've had in VR. So after playing, I just knew that I had to interview the team of creators who brought this incredible experience to life. But before we start with this video, I will be going live over on Twitch, so if you want to be there firsthand for more experiences, then make sure you join in. Now, let's roll the trailer. Well then, thank you guys so much for coming today. I really appreciate you sitting down and taking the time to talk to me. We have Legends, Fiona, Lakuza, and Cyan Laser here. So if you guys don't mind, go ahead and tell me a little bit about how the idea for the Devouring was born and how this whole thing kind of came together.
Yeah, I guess the idea came from Cyan and Fiona, I think, first, for just spookality. They wanted to do like a fun little horror world. And it was always going to be like some sort of mansion, but it wasn't going to be like, it wasn't aiming to be scary. It's going to be more like a fun thing. But then the scope kind of changed about a couple of weeks before the spookality deadline, I think, and we realized we wanted to make something bigger. And then, yeah, it evolved into what it is now. So it was really different when we started out.
Yeah, so it started off as more of a small project. Can you tell me a little bit about spookality?
So spookality, I guess, is VRChat's like yearly Halloween contest almost. Every year they put out like basically a contest that there have been prizes this year and like last year, where it was just it's October time. They basically say, hey, we want more horror maps in VRChat, so we're making a contest to get you to incentivize people to making them. And so we saw this and thought, hey, it's like, this might be our first opportunity as a group project to collaborate together. Let's do a horror project because everybody will be excited for it.
Yeah. I mean, originally we weren't going to do horror at all. I don't like horror and I don't play horror games. So it was supposed to be kind of a joke map, like a spooky mansion where like nothing happened. But like Cyan would just do the voiceover and just be very ominous, like as you went through like this kind of like spooky mansion. That was the original idea. It was just kind of like an environment where like Cyan just was really like creepily talking. I don't know. I do not remember how we got from there to the Devouring. I don't remember at all.
Like I think it's when I asked if I could be in charge of the planning, the layout stuff. Because there was a point where we weren't really getting anywhere. And I remember asking you in one of the worlds if I could just... At the time, I wanted the least amount of responsibility because I had other worlds to do. So I was like, if I do planning, I won't have to do much work. And then once you're planning, that's when it changed a lot. And then I was like, we could do, just massive like water section in the basement, and then this thing over here, and then it kind of spiraled out of control at that point, and we realized
which is hilarious because he did the most amount of work on the project.
Oh, did you? That's crazy. That's so funny.
He did.
Everything changed.
So Yakuza like started off with a blueprint, and he's like, Legends, I need you to model this all up. And I was like, okay. So I looked at the blueprint and I started modeling all the ground floor and stuff, and that's how pretty much we started the world. It started from the ground floor, and then I think it went to the basement and then the floor 2. So it's like, it was really impressive how it all just came together, because the blueprint was huge, and it was like I was just modeling and I was like, this is so big. And then the basement was even bigger, and I was like, oh my god, it's so big. And I was like, yeah, we're going to be spending a lot of time on this. Yeah. So it was really fun though, like just seeing everything come together, like, as far as time-wise and all that.
No, the project absolutely turned out great. And kind of on that same note, I was hoping, Yakuza, will you actually give us like a briefing of what the Devouring is? Like, what is kind of the story when people enter this game for the first time?
So it's quite a light story on the surface, but essentially you're on a road trip for some unknown reason. Like, it's never explained where you're going, and that's kind of left up to the player. You start out in a gas station, you get in the car, and it's a very textless lobby. So it's kind of like you're allowed to role play whatever you're doing. And then as you start the car journey, you get radio stations that explain that there are people going missing, people getting concerned, and there's not enough action being taken by the government to kind of investigate what's happening. And then you get into a car crash with mysterious circumstances, and you wake up inside a mysterious manor, and all you have is a letter telling you to stay in the guest room, and that dinner will be ready soon. And they're asking you to stay, but they're saying don't leave the guest room. And that's all the information you get. And then you kind of left to your own devices. Do you just stay in the guest room? Do you start to, wander out? And then from there, it's kind of like, it's all about your experience for the manor. Like there's no sort of cutscenes during that journey. But you're trying to figure out why you are in this manor and why you're being kept in the guest room. And you kind of realize that things aren't what they appear to be. And then, it's just trying to discover what's going on.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting, super interesting, and I love that you really do feel like you're a part of the story going into that too, which was kind of what I really enjoyed, is that there isn't a lot of things that are explained, and then you kind of have to piece together everything on your own and kind of come up with your own interpretation, which I think is absolutely like the best way to kind of evoke that like horror sense in anybody too. Which is really cool. And so I wanted to talk a little more as well with you about the enemies, right? So you designed some of these monsters. Can you tell me a little bit of what you had in mind when designing these, terrific creatures? Yeah.
So we kind of came up really quick with the ideas of what we wanted for the monsters. A few of them came really like the mannequins came really like in December. But we had like a clear goal, like we wanted this kind of enemy in this section. I think what we call the lurker, which is the roaming one, that's one that we kind of decided really quick, because that's from a design, like a planning perspective, that's really easy to come up with. It's just a wandering monster. So we had that, and then we also really liked the water ghost from Amnesia. So we really wanted to do our own interpretation of that concept, and Cyan handled the sort of AI tests for that, and then came up with a prototype. And once you showed that, we this is gonna work. This is, it's really cool. And the stuff like the Living Darkness stuff came by quite late into development, because everything in Floor 2, I wouldn't say improvised, but it kind of took shape really late into development. Like we knew that we wanted to do something with darkness, but we didn't know how to do it yet. And the mannequin section was completely different. That was going to be an entirely different thing that was cut out due to time constraints and replaced with that, which I'm grateful we did. And in terms of the designs, really early on, we kind of agreed that we want to keep things unknown. So generally, we believe that, at least in horror movies and stuff, the moment they reveal the enemy, it's not scary anymore, because you kind of know everything about it. And we felt like a lot of VRChat worlds felt that kind of trap of just showing the enemy way too early, and you kind of know everything about it. We wanted the whole mystery element, so that's why a lot of the enemies are shrouded in smoke, or if they're in silhouette, and you can never see the details completely. Fiona originally made the original sort of lurker model, which is a kind of version of the avatars, just kind of stripped all the hair and everything. And then we kind of went I think like quite late in development, like we changed it with a model that I was making for like at the time it was a painting ghost. So it would have been like a banshee that comes out of paintings and flies around. But that was kind of like a stretch goal / pitch that I had. But then we kind of merged that into the lurker in the end.
Leaned pretty hard into the whole tentacles thing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, like I guess not to spoil too much of it, but the ending was never planned from the beginning either. That came, I would say, kind of late November-ish. I think I pitched it to these guys. At the same time, I was worried about stress load. So I was like, everything to do with the ending, I'll handle myself because I know it's a stretch goal. So yeah, I kind of came up with a design for that, the whole ending thing, and tried to take on as much as I could for that one because like it was something I was really passionate about, bring that kind of a horror element into it. But yeah, it was like so that was quite interesting. And then the mannequins, it was kind of a leftover design I did for like a past project, which is like robots, but I kind of like de-robotified it and made it into like mannequins instead. Because originally that whole section was going to be a really weird, twisted environment where like beds and everything's floating and you have to platform across it. But it's going to be very set-piecey. So at first we were going to do these massive, like, crazy environments where it's just changing. And we kind of felt like this is too much of a workload. Like, we'd be here for, like... At the time, we were joking, saying we'd be here until, like, summer making this world if we had that in. Little did we know that we were going to take that long anyway. But, yeah. So the mannequins was like something I did during like the sort of Christmas holidays. So I did that as a pitch because these guys, I think it's when you guys were meeting up in real life, and I had like I think a week to create this pitch of the mannequins, and that's when that whole crowd room came in. So I showed these guys when they came back and was like, "How's this for this section?" So that's how the mannequins came to be. So they were quite, I guess, improvised in that sense as well. And then the whole tentacle sort of stuff like. Like the eye corridor, that came in quite late. And like the eye corridor, for example, was like another pitch that I did. And at first we were going to scrap it entirely because it wasn't scary. That was partly because of the lighting and the materials. So yeah, Fiona made Fiona made a big strong point on like changing the materials up because it was very unlit. So it didn't feel like realistic. It just felt too cartoony. And then with like the feedback from Fiona, like we put like the materials in and it looked a lot better. And then eventually we added the post-processing in to make it a lot better. Yeah, I would say the Lurker, the Water Ghost, and then the Stalker, which was entirely like on Simon and Fiona's side with the particle effects and AI stuff. Yeah, that I would say those three sort of elements were planned quite early. We just thought it'd be funny to do like an AFK monster.
That one did get us quite a few times where we'd be standing still and then you just see this like black goopy like stuff start coming out of the ground. Oh my gosh, it was so scary because you'd be waiting for somebody else too. Where like especially in the mannequin room where we had our group, you know, some people would get left behind and then they'd get caught and then they'd have to start over again. And so we'd have to stand there and then try not to get caught by the mannequins and have to move like back and forth because you didn't want the AFK monster to get you. And that was like terrifying, but it made the atmosphere, it was so like paced. Like everything was like, you have to be fast, you have to keep going, like you cannot stop and take a break, which I think is so great in keeping you engaged. I think that was like an absolutely like brilliant game mechanic to implement in this type of game.
Yeah, I remember we were all just like we were all like just testing the world, and Zion was like, "What if this was in sync?" And we all just kind of like, you know, like, "Oh, awesome," you know. And then he put it in sync, and it's just like it really added to the multiplayer experience because you could see when someone else's monster is coming from above, below them, and you're like, "Watch out, watch out!" And it just had so many funny moments in streams. It's hilarious.
Oh, it's
So,
great.
that was yeah.
No, that was fantastic. I think it's so cool to, you know, those little things are what kind of makes the whole atmosphere of this kind of like creepy, like horror, you know, which leads really well into my next question was for you, Legends, is about the music. The music is so fantastic. It totally, it engages you. It keeps you, you know, spooked. Like it's really, really beautiful. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what was the process like for making the music and making some of the sounds that really make this world come to life.
So when I think about the music, I actually don't remember how it came about that I decided to do music for the project. I think it just sort of naturally happened. I felt like everyone had their roles kind of, but we all had a hand in the project. But I felt like, I could do music, because I had the skill, and I was like, why not? The thing was, I never had done horror music before, so I didn't know like how it would turn out. So I spent a lot of time like studying music and just like all kinds of different kinds of soundtracks from different games. Dead Space, Amnesia, Silent Hill, Resident Evil, especially Resident Evil. All those games, they had like soundtracks that would, really capture you and immerse you in the environment, especially Resident Evil. Resident Evil is really good. Like Resident Evil had a specific theme, a save room theme that I really liked. So I took a lot of inspiration from that theme, and I always wanted to create a theme like that. So it was perfect. We were making a mansion and everything, so it's like perfect. So I took that theme and I made it my own kind of thing. I did my own thing with it. And then once that started, because I think that was the first theme I made, and once that was in, I felt like, okay, I can do this. Because, like I said, I never did horror music before. So lots of listening to horror music, like during my own free time. And this is like kind of getting stuck in my head. And it was like every day there's just like horror music playing in my head because like I'm trying to figure out how this thing works. Because with horror music, it the way it is, it's like I figured out that you have to make it sound good, but it's bad. You know what I mean? Like you don't want it. That's what my message was at the end. Like I hope it wasn't good. I hope you didn't enjoy it because like, you know what I mean? Like it's not supposed. You're not supposed to love it because it's scary. You're supposed to be like, oh no, this sounds super scary. But I wanted it to be good. So a lot of like the feeling came from just me being in the world and just kind of hearing what would go with the world, like what would fit with the world. So a few things I did, like with the ground floor track, I thought about how there's a lot of wood interiors in the ground floor. So I was like, what if there's like some kind of, like, I don't know if you heard it, but it's like a creaking wood noise that goes about in the ground floor. It's like that.
Yeah.
So small details like that I added in to kind of feel you and immerse you in the atmosphere, to really just, you're in this mansion. There's like, you don't know where it's massive. You don't know where you're at. You're just hearing all these noises, and the music is kind of slowly, like the ground floor music itself is like 5 tracks, but it's all one. So it all plays it just plays like 5 tracks, but they're all like one track. I just put them all together, and I ordered them in a way that is kind of like a movie. Like I had to visualize what the players are doing when they're on the map. You're hiding behind something, and then the music kind of picks up, that kind of thing. So those are some of the things that I, like had to think about when I was creating the music for the Devouring. So.
No, that's fantastic. I think, the music really does play such a psychological importance like in what you're doing. And I think it's so cool that you literally sat down and thought about like, how can I match this to, the player's actions to, enhance that feeling of immersion, which is super duper cool.
I wanted that, like when you go in the guest room, I wanted you to feel safe. When you're in the mannequin section, Lakuza's like, Legends, we need this to be butt clinchy. I need them to be clenching their butts, sweating, scared. I was like, okay, I know exactly what to do. So I took that and I, sort of ran with it. And I came up, like these tracks there was a lot of revisions, a lot of changing, like the Living Darkness section with the crystals. That had an entirely different track. It was more ambience. And I thought, like, I don't think this is enough. Like, there's too much ambience in the world. We need something that's different, So I looked for some inspiration, and one of those was The Legend of Zelda. It's a shadow temple in The Legend of Zelda and that theme is pretty dark. So I took inspiration from that because there's like howling and things like that, weird, creepy sounds. And I took that as an inspiration and I kind of did my own thing with it. And then I put that in I made a new track, and once I put that in that level in that section, Fiona was like, I hate it so much. I was like, yes, I did it.
You know it's perfect. Fiona hates it. Yeah,
it's perfect.
Yes.
Exactly. And she
I
would
had
tell
to
me,
test that session so many times, and like once the music went in, oh, I hated it so much, and I couldn't turn the music off because I had to hear the sounds.
And she's every time she'd hear a track, she'd be like, Legends, I hate you. Why would you? It's like, I'm sorry, I have to make it scary. It was funny though, you know. So, but yeah, and then like, you know, just the different sections, like the basement, for example, is mostly ambience, but I felt like you were moving a lot, you know, like there's this water monster that's chasing you throughout this basement and you have to keep moving. So I didn't want the music for the basement to be intense, but I wanted it to be like, if you were hearing it, there's like a little drum going on, like cackling in the back, just kind of like makes you feel like you have to think, you know. But it's those details that I try and pay attention to like bring myself into what the player is thinking, because with music and like atmosphere, you have to, it's all about emotion, you know, like you have to understand about feeling and emotions and what the player is going to feel and all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of ties it all together to like create this, you know, it just like fills the puzzle, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. So.
No, that makes a lot of sense. You really have to understand what a player is thinking. And I think, you know, I feel like that must be such a hard part of game development in general, is being able to take yourself out of what you made and try and even like imagine like somebody who's doing it for the first time. Because I'm sure that you get so used to it. And of course, you know, you
completely
get kind of
desensitized to it.
Right, exactly. I can imagine that's a real challenge sometimes. So it's very impressive that you guys were able to make it, you know,
Now, there were a few times that... Yeah, like there were a few times where we were, you know, got caught off guard, and still thinking about it, still funny because it was like we were, you know, the fact that, you know, okay, we're the creators, and you know, we just kind of know what's gonna happen. We expect I think the only person is Cyan that didn't get like surprised. I think, I don't know, because, you know, like
scare.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, I know the route, I know where it's going, I know what it's gonna do, you know, like, you know, he's just like it's nothing, you know. We're just like at first, and then like one time, the funniest moment, I swear I keep laughing at this, I'm trying not to laugh now, but me and Lakuza and I, we were walking in the music room, and we saw the lurker coming. And we were able to outrun it. We went into the closet. Now, somehow the lurker was just like, I don't know, it had something personal against us or something. But when we opened up the closet door, the lurker was there, and Lakuza went, whoa! And it made me jump. And then it just was, it was so funny because it was so unexpected, you know, like, but that moment, it's just like we had a lot of moments like that were just, you know, like, funny moments to look back on during the development. So, you know, it's really fun.
No, I can imagine. It sounds like a fantastic, you know, experience. Like being able to work together, like all on that anyways, getting to experience the horror, you know, as a group.
Yeah.
But Fiona, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the manor itself. And I know that you did a lot of like modeling for the props and furniture, but you also did a lot of the puzzles. And so I wanted to kind of hear like how was the process for that and coming up with puzzles and placing them in the manor and, you know, designing all that.
So my role on the project, I didn't even know that this was a job until like after it was done, and I met somebody who actually has this role, which is a tech artist, basically. So like so I'm gonna say that like Legends was much more of an environment artist, and I'm much more of a tech artist. So like I did a lot of the modular assets and like furniture and props and things like that. And so Lakuza would do like the layout, and then I would take all those pieces and build on top of that. So and so some of the puzzles, for example, like the light puzzle. So Lakuza figured out like how it was going to work. Is like, okay, here's where the doors are, and this, you know, here's where the torches are, and here's how you like solve the puzzle. And my job was to implement that. And you know, so most of the puzzles I didn't come up with. I think the only one that like I had much influence on was the piano puzzle. So like the piano puzzle, like I made the piano and like, set all that up. And Legends had written a theme for that area. And so then I just like, kind of like turned that into some like sheet music clues, and we had to balance that a lot to make sure that that was doable, because some people would find it really challenging, and we didn't want to make it only listening, or so like there's a lot of ways to solve it. But for the most part, like a lot of the things that I did is I made the assets, and then I had to make them work. So for example, every single piece of furniture, it seems very simple. You open a drawer, and if there's a pickup in it, you take it out. That's actually really fairly complex to put in and make optimized, because we had hundreds, if not thousands, of things that move. So every single door has an animator, every single drawer, and once you have those in the world, it becomes really unoptimized. So me and Cyan worked together for the last month or two of the project, literally just redoing everything to make them optimized, because just having that many animators in the world itself was a big frame drop. So just kind of like setting up like the light puzzle, I had to redo that one so many times because we would change something and it would break and be like, okay, now the doors don't work. And so like every I'm like, okay, well now the door, you'd think a door just opens and closes. In the basement, they actually do, like that is a very complex game object because they break and they have to reset. And like they, whether a door is synced or not and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of what I did was kind of the things that players don't see. It's just like, when actually what's happening is if there's an object in a drawer, when it opens, there's a dummy visual. And so then as soon as it's opened, it swaps out with the actual pickup.
Oh,
and then if you don't take it out, that pickup turns off and goes back in. So that's how it looks like it's moving. And, just making sure that all of those things were set up in the right place, had the right lighting. Like that's the kind of thing that I did a lot of my work on.
Yeah, it sounds like you kind of were able to glue so many of the different things together and kind of take all of these elements and kind of shape it into this experience that players get to have, which I think, like you said, a lot of the stuff you're doing is stuff that we don't necessarily see when we're playing the game or think about, but it's those attentions to details to where, like, if it was missing, everybody would notice, because it's so important and vital to the structure of it, which is really, really cool. And the other
so
question...
for example, the stalker particles, those were those went through a lot of iterations. So, and like the living darkness, what it looks like, that went through a lot of iterations. Originally, I wanted to have like 3D tentacles coming out everywhere, but that wasn't very performant or very convincing. And then I had like a projector, so like the tentacles would come up on the wall. Same thing, like it just kind of wasn't working out. What we ended up doing was very simple. There's just a quad on the floor with a picture that kind of rotates. And that was very performant, and yet still conveyed the idea without being very cheesy. And like I'm sort of surprised that that's what we ended up with. It was like the dumbest solution, but it worked out. That with the combination of like the materials that and shader that like Cyan put together to make the actual like darkness object nice and fuzzy and like a black hole sort of thing. So yeah, a lot of like little details on the effects that just took a lot of fine tuning.
Oh, yeah. No, I can imagine. I was actually going to ask about the particles because I feel like those play an important part in making everything feel alive again and seeing, especially with like the lurker and the stalker and like seeing those things like just slowly appear is like, ooh, it's so scary, just that little hint of like, what's coming and you don't want it to be there. Really adds to it.
It is so funny. Like there would be things that like I would design the particle effect and then suddenly like we were hanging out on, I think, the pipes and someone was just waiting there and then the stalker came and then I'm like, oh shoot, I need to make the stalker also work if you can see the bottom of it. So then I had to redesign it so that like when it comes up, it's not just flat on the bottom, and then when it disappears, like it still looks creepy and not just like, oh, we cut it off. So things like that is you would only notice in testing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Then the next kind of thing I wanted to talk about was with Cyan, because I know that you did a ton of AI work, and specifically you did a lot of this work in the SDK too, not even in Udon. And so I can imagine that must have been very challenging. So tell me about the process for that.
Okay, the process for that one, I guess I've been working with VRChat's like SDK2. Well, I guess when the project started, it was I think a little less than 2 years, but at this point it's, been 2.5, but it's just like,
Mm.
I've been doing like all of the research and things, and like at this point, like if I really wanted to do something in SDK2, it's just like, it'll take time, but it's just like, I kind of understand how to do it initially.
Mm.
It just gets really tedious because it's not actual coding.
Hmm.
But a lot of the initial like AI things, like those are kind of like straightforward in a weird sense. Like the chasing enemies, like I've done something similar in a project that like I haven't released yet, and this was just like an expansion on that. So it was just like, okay, I'll just re-implement that, and then realize, oh, I did it better. Awesome. Other things of like, there's a lot of techniques that were like put into like the design of the world that were just kind of added in later, I guess. So as I think, was it Legends that pointed out earlier, like the stalker, like the AFK monster, was not originally synced. And so it's just kind of, that was like one of my stretch goals that I wanted to do like really early on, but it's like because of all the other work, it's like I never got to it. I think realizing that the project was being so long anyway, it's just like, might as well just get to this now. And then apparently it added so much value to the project.
Mm.
I guess, was there any other specific pieces to that?
Well, there's also, so he did a lot of things that players will never see. So he wrote a lot of tools for our development process that would have taken us just so much more time. Like even like there'll be little things like I just be like, oh, we accidentally like, set all of these flags on these prefabs wrong. It's going to take me days to reset them. And he'd just be like, oh, I'll just write a script to do it.
I guess that was my other role. So I guess the difference between like SDK2 and like Udon is that with Udon, you can actually write a script and it works in game. Well, for me in SDK2, I'll just write an editor script that just like automates the process entirely in editor so that it's all set up once it goes in game. And so the example that Fiona just said there is like, oh, all of our prefabs, we've like, set it up such that they're different in the scene versus what's reset. And then it's just like, okay, I'll just write a simple script that goes through everything and, resets the value. And it's just like, in my side, it's like, it seems like something so small, but like saves days of work.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing was just kind of like...
we're not coders. Like the three of us don't code at all. So we really relied on Cyan to like do the heavy lifting and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things for me is that like the way SDK2 is like everything needs to be like manually linked. So I just wrote a script that basically just says like, I will make an event or whatever. And then like, it'll like say one thing and be looking for something. And then it's like my script automatically like links everything together. Oh, I guess one of those like issues with that, this is a cloud project and there's 4 people working on it. Unity Cloud, which is what we use to like sync everything, typically is bad when people try to like modify the same Unity scene. And so it's like, okay, we have to split up the work so that we're not all like conflicting with each other, which then meant like, I think the Devouring project itself was like 6 Unity scenes. 5 or 6.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think the more interesting part about it was like realizing, okay, at some point we're going to need to merge all this together. And so I think a normal person would be like, okay, we'll just wait until everything is ready and we'll just like merge the scene. I'm sitting here like, no, let's automate the process.
Yeah, so I mean, like that's how we tested things. So like we had a ground floor, basement, second floor, and all of these things were, and then like the intro, the ending. So we could all work on them simultaneously as long as we communicated what we're working on. And then we could test them by running his script. It would make a temporary version of everything merged that we could actually test. And like, I don't know how we would have done it otherwise. Like how I literally don't know. Like how would we have done that if you didn't have that? Like,
and I guess another big thing was another big thing was like the late join sync as well. Like that was something that was like really big for us. That was only really possible because Cyan was there to like make that a reality.
So it's like, I guess going with that, like, I don't know how many people actually know how to like properly sync things in SDK2 because it is like a very unintuitive system. So like I've tried making tutorials on it, but I guess because of me learning all those things, it meant that I could actually make a large world like this that is possible to sync for late joiners. And so it's like the little things of, like what doors and what drawers were opened. And then like progress events of like, has that, I'll just say one puzzle been solved yet? And like all those little pieces. There's so many
Yeah,
little
that's
details into making like
crazy.
sync work.
And he's been teaching me how to do this for like 2 years. I still would mess up, and so there's like you can do things by oversync them, which will cause performance issues, or you can like messing up like the late joiner because like it syncs two things and it's different if they happen in the game or whether they happen right on join. And so yeah, we had I broke stuff all the time. And Cyan had to help me fix it.
I mean, I
Yeah,
also
that's
broke
great to
stuff
have
too.
a
It's just I
friend.
didn't tell you about it.
He just gets away with it. That's awesome.
I mean, that's game development, right? It's like you make something, you test it, like, oh, it doesn't work quite well, so let's fix it. And in fixing it, you break more stuff. So.
Yeah.
No, that's funny. I could imagine that there's probably a lot of challenges that kind of go into trying to program all of this different stuff. But that's why I wanted to ask kind of like what were some of the other challenges that you guys faced? Like was there any specific times that were like, oh man, like things are going wrong, like how do we fix this?
I suppose in my mind, optimization. I was super picky about like how the ending like performance would be, I suppose. And so like when we did our first playtest, like the people who went in, like I think they had like pretty beefy computers, but like even going in, like the max frame rate they would get was like 45. And so it's just kind of like, okay, the world works, but it doesn't work well. And so it's kind of like, oh great, like a month and a half of just straight, like why is this like so costly? Like what are we doing that's just like making it so bad? And then it's just kind of, that was one of those things of like, I was freaking out for the longest time of being like, can we ever get 90 frames?
Yeah, I think for me, like again, optimization, but on the occlusion culling side, I just had that felt like I was like headbutting the wall 'cause I was getting gnarly with that. And I think we came to the conclusion it was Unity 2018 that was doing things different than what we are used to. So basically, if you ever saw like blinks happen when you're walking around, that's basically the problem that I was trying to fix. And I was trying to get rid of it entirely. And by the end of it, I just had to like, Cyan built like a kind of a VR emulator inside Unity so we could test it in like the editor. And we figured out it's happening with VR. So it's like, for some reason, it just doesn't handle that properly. So we had to kind of like just accept that sort of level of jank and remember it is a VRChat world. And we're not trying to make like a AAA game or something. But yeah, that one, I felt like I was doing that for like at least a month. And it was just, yeah, it was probably the most, probably the closest I got to getting burnt out while working on that project is just trying to do the occlusion culling. Because like you can imagine me going into the basement over and over again, looking at every wall and making sure that things aren't blinking out. And then when it does, I'm back into Unity trying to like redo it all. And it was yeah, really annoying.
For me, it was the gaps. Oh my God. Okay, so like all of the walls are like 1 or 4 meter pieces. And in Unity, there's you can vertex snap things together. So like you should just go snap, snap, snap and should all work. So like, you know, when I first set it up, it took me like a few days to build the environment. And like, you can imagine like if you have a wall with one piece off, you have to move all the pieces that connect to it if you screwed it up. And so everything is built and it looks fine. And we go into VR, you'd see like these little cracks in places. And so we couldn't figure out why this was happening because Unity said it was snapped together, but then you can see it was like a couple pixels apart. And so like I just spent so much time and banging my head against the wall and like moving things around until we figured out it was like floating point error. So like if you had a parent that was like at a, you know, large floating point decimal places, they wouldn't ever match up. And so then I had to go and like reformat the hierarchy and put everything together. And still that was like so tedious. And you may notice in the environment, both in the basement and the upper floors, there's a lot of pillars. And I had a game object that was called pillars to hide my sins. So if it got to the point where like things didn't match up and I'm like, well, I could spend hours like scooting every single wall to make them all work. Nope. Pillar, done, move on.
That's great. That's great. Ingenious solution. I love it.
Yeah.
So for me, I had 2 moments where I felt like, you know, like, oh man, this isn't going to work. The first was really early on in the project. It was when I was modeling the ground floor, and I had to look for like, the materials and the textures that we would use for the ground floor. And those bits for me are usually difficult because I can be really like indecisive of what I'm gonna use. So it's like, I could use this wood or this texture or this texture. And I spent a lot of time trying to like nail the atmosphere for that, because I know that we would reuse those textures early on and later on in the map. So it was really difficult to like find the perfect kind of texture that would kind of give in, like it would like it make the scene look like a horror, like something that you wouldn't feel comfortable in. So that was one challenge for me early on. But the biggest challenge for me is like definitely for the music was the water chase theme. That theme was really difficult for me to come up with because I had never, like I said, I never did horror music before. And a lot of those instruments, I've never like put them together to layer them to be like that. So it was really, really difficult. Also, that segment was like I think it was, how many minutes was that water chase? It was like, I think that entire thing was like a 2-minute run or chase section, I think.
Sort of,
And
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's like something around there. So I had to make the track to where it was in sync with that moment. Like you're running and the track is picking up as you're going and it's getting more intense. So I had to really, really, really like picture myself running from this thing and like actual, like actually running from this thing. I had to put all those emotions in the track, and it was really difficult because it was really challenging because there's a lot of ways to go about that, and it just like when I first started working on it, I was like, no, I don't like this. I don't think this is gonna work. I don't think this is gonna be intense enough, because I didn't want it to be too intense. I wanted it to be just enough where you're on edge or you're running for your life, but it's not too much. Like it's not overly loud. Another thing was the mannequin section. That was a little bit difficult to put together because the way we did it was it's layers. Floor 2 and the mannequin section are one track, but what it is we layered them so that whenever you enter the mannequin section, you hear that specific layer for the music. So like if you're in the floor 2, you hear the ambience, and then you go in the mannequin section, you hear the heartbeat and the other sounds. And together they kind of like work in sync. Cyan put it together. I thought that was really cool, by the way. Like Cyan put it together to make it so that these are seamless, like you walk in and you hear the heartbeat, and it just kind of like gives you the vibe, oh, what did I just walk into? And then you see the mannequin just gets up and flies away. You're
so
like,
scary. That part really got me. Like out of the entire game, that might have been one of the scariest moments for me, was turning the corner and seeing him on the ground and then just rise up. Oh my gosh, it was so terrifying. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, like it's a moment where like you've probably, like most players, they're in the map, they've been everywhere kind of, they're getting a little bit used to the mansion. And then once you get to that part, you're like, oh, it's scary again. Like literally I've heard people say, oh no, it's scary again. And it's just like, like a yes moment, like, yeah, we got him, and it just kind of really brings you back in, because it's pretty, like that section was definitely the most scariest. I was really happy with how the music came out, because I spent so much time trying to think of a theme that would like work for that, like I didn't want something playing that's too intense, but something that's just kind of like you are in trouble.
Right.
Like something is. Yeah.
For the mannequin part, my exact instructions for that was make the players rage quit with the music. That's all I get. That's all I told Legends. And then,
yeah, the butt clenchy music. It's like, all right. I will say that while I was making that track, I think, I was butt clenching. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be good.
I think I was butt clenching listening to it, so I think you achieved what you were going for there.
Success. But yeah, it was really a challenge because, like I said, those things were something I've never done before, but especially those two tracks, the water theme, chase, and the mannequin section, because there's a lot of ways you can go about that. And like I said, you really have to like bring yourself into how the player will feel about it. And it's just one of those things that you have to really think about. But yeah.
No, that's really cool. I think it's super interesting to hear about how like the process was for each of you, because obviously, you know, this was a 10-month project. Like, it's not going to be smooth sailing, and it only was that long because there was so many details and things. And so it's really interesting to hear about everybody's, you know, experience with that. And so the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about is that once you finish the game and you get to the very end, on your little messages, you guys talk about there being like an extended universe with the Devouring and with the Devouring universe. So will you tell me a little bit about what's going on with that?
Yeah, so that's I think I kind of pitched that idea probably around like February or January. I think it was quite late in the project, but
I'm going to
it's
point out
tied
that
to the
January is still really early in the project.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So like I guess it's okay to go into spoilers with this.
Yeah. Well, spoiler warning.
yeah, exactly.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah, it's a spoiler warning. So obviously with the end, you see the being which we call the Rock, and it's basically a giant. It is inspired of jellyfish, believe it or not. It's like I looked at like documentaries of jellyfish, and I really like the idea of how it kills its enemies. So the entire thing was based off that, but just mixed with like a cosmic horror. And so the shared universe was like an idea I pitched that it would be really cool if we could inspire other world creators to make worlds set in this universe. So a lot of times people have good ideas, but they just don't know how to kind of wrap the whole thing in sort of a package, or like, you know, have a storyline to go with it. So this is kind of an incentive. Like, if you've got a cool game design, we've got like story here for you that you can adapt to that.
Oh, that's super cool.
So I pitched that idea, like it would be cool if, because like we're all quite involved in the world creator community anyway. So like Cyan, me and Fiona are like admins of the prefabs community. So we're already like doing a lot of things, you know, to kind of share prefabs out to people. So this is kind of like building on that concept of like we're giving something back to the community this way. And also we can provide assets from the main world to the people that want to make these worlds too. But essentially it's tied by, again, the being called Rock. Like his full name is Rock Gunka, which is like a mix of like 3 different words. But each door you saw at the end is potentially another world by another world creator. So that in a way gives people an excuse to go as wild as they want, because anything inside that door is like its own different world, and this guy's own rule set. So everything you saw in the mansion is basically one of these things, and we refer to them as stomach dimensions. So it's how the Rock kind of feeds off people by trapping them in. So each world that someone makes will be a different set of victims in a new location, and this could be as alien as you want or as like human as you want in design. And essentially it's just people have to like just contact me or get on my server and express interest and share the idea that they have. We're looking for people who are like kind of experienced in world creating and this kind of stuff. So we're not going to accept everyone on board, because like obviously we want like a certain level of quality. But we've got 13 people on board already. Some are waiting for Spirituality to be over before they jump into it, but we've got like 3-4 worlds in development by different people, and they're looking super promising. I'm really happy that they're all kind of really unique from each other as well. So they've all got their own unique settings. So it's going to be really fun. They're all like capable world creators as well. So it's exciting. It means that we don't have to work on a sequel. So it's like the community can just keep adding to it. So I guess it's kind of like I'm not too familiar with SCP, but I assume it's similar to that. But we've got a strict law set, so you can't break certain things. So like one of the laws, for example, is like there's a constant theme of like humanity is kind of doomed with these alien beings. There's no beating it. It's like a slow extinction of mankind. So one of the rules is that you can't suddenly have like the player become like super powerful and take one of these creatures out. It's like impossible. So it's more of like, because I believe that cosmic horror is all about that kind of dread of like we're hopeless or helpless in the face of these, you know, these magnificent sort of creatures. So there's a kind of elegance and horror to it at the same time. But otherwise, they can do whatever they want inside the world, and you know, as long as it sticks to horror, and we're hoping that it kind of promotes more worlds that aren't jump scare heavy and are focused on interesting game design. That was one of the things we wanted to really emphasize with this project, is avoid like overuse of gore, use of like jump scares and like stupidly loud sounds. There's a place for that, but we felt like VRChat's too focused on that, and it wasn't really an alternative thing. So that's why Devouring lacks those kind of like images, you know, shaking in your face and stuff. And we're hoping that we can inspire more worlds for that, because clearly there's an audience for this now. We were actually worried if there would be an audience for this or not. But yeah, we were kind of but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it looks
funny.
like people's have made it worthwhile to make this. So yeah, there's definitely an audience there. So yeah, it's really looking interesting what people
Yeah.
are coming up with.
I'm really excited to see what people are able to do and create, and I'm especially excited to just know that there's more coming for this universe and for this genre of horror that you guys have shaped here. I think it's really exciting, and I hope that you know, the people who watch this will be excited and go try it, and then I hope some people even become inspired to know that, you know, these types of things can be made in things like VRChat, and basically like anything you put your mind to, like you can create a full game like you guys did. It's just about wanting to and putting in the time and the dedication which you guys have, and I think it's, you know, super inspiring to see that you guys took the time to do something like this, and I really hope it brings, you know, a whole bunch of world creators and inspires them to do more things like this. But yeah, that
Yeah,
pretty much wraps
I-
up everything
yeah.
that I wanted to talk about today, unless you guys have any, you know, extra thoughts.
No, I was gonna agree with what you said. Like it literally is time and dedication. Like most of us here, like we started world building at the same time with no experience in this kind of thing. So we've kind of like learned over time together. So it's literally just time and dedication. Like if we can make a world, anyone watching this can make a world. You just need to be dedicated enough to like have like that end goal in mind. And yeah, just make something that you're passionate about, and it'll come to life eventually. It's not something that'll happen overnight, but yeah, just stick to it, and then you can make like really cool stuff. Like you don't need like a degree, is all I'm saying. It's like time and dedication is all you need. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's super cool. But yeah, so then if you want to go ahead, we'll start with Legends. If you guys want to go down and plug any socials that you want, you know, if anybody watching this is interested in following you guys or following, you know, future developments that you guys are doing, go ahead and do that now.
Well, I have a Twitter. You can follow that at Legends on Twitter, and I will be showing my creations there and like things that I'm working on, work in progress things, music sometimes that I'm releasing.
Is it Legends VR on Twitter?
Yeah, Legends VR. Yep.
Perfect.
Legends VR. Devouring original soundtrack will be coming out in like 2 weeks, so
Oh, wonderful.
I'm getting that wrapped up, and yeah, that's going to be out on Spotify and a bunch of different networks, and you know, like iTunes and stuff like that. And yeah, that's my social.
Perfect.
So feel free to follow if you're interested. And thank you.
My Twitter is Jen Davis Wilson on Twitter. And I also have a booth under Fiona VR in which I'll be releasing the Devouring assets and any other asset packs that I come up with. So far, everything that I'm going to release is free. There's already the lighter and some of the toys from the Devouring up there. The rest of the stuff I'm aiming for VCAT 5. And so I'll have a booth at VCAT 5 with a lot of the Devouring assets that I created there too.
Awesome.
Cool. So my Twitter is Lakuza VR. And I basically just make adventure worlds in VRChat. So I'm always posting updates and progress on there. Let's see. Yeah, and then I've got a Discord server for all my worlds, but I only put the server link inside the worlds. I don't really advertise it online, so if you do want to join that, just go to one of the worlds and you'll find it there. But I tend to do a lot of community-related like screenshots and stuff and like Hall of Fame stuff. Even though I've kind of stopped that for Devouring because it was like just too many submissions. Yeah, I think that's about it really. But I will be releasing the character models from Devouring at VCAT 5 as well. So like the mannequins and the lurker, they'll be accessible for people who want to use them in worlds or make avatars out of them. So it'd be kind of cool if we see like just random mannequins in different worlds. But yeah, that'll be available for free as well. But yeah, looking forward to what the community does with it.
So as for me, my Twitter is the same as my username here, Cyan Laser. I haven't been posting as much lately because I was trying to avoid like the spoilers from the Devouring, but like hopefully I'll start posting more content soon. Another thing, I guess, I'm one of the people trying to like help others make worlds. So it's been a while, but I do have like video tutorials on like logic side of like using SDK2 triggers, how to do that, tutorials how to make things like that. And that would be on my YouTube channel, which is also Cyan Laser. And then one thing that is not particularly me, but it is our community, VRC Prefabs. I think it's vrcprefabs.com/browse. You can download free prefabs for worlds and avatars that, just add to your own content as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's also at VRC Prefabs on Twitter. And the that list of available assets is pinned on my Twitter and I think Cyan's as well, or you can find that at VRC Prefabs on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, that's perfect. It's so good that you guys have so many different resources for people to go and use and, enabling future world creators. I think that's fantastic. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here today, for sitting down with me and being able to talk about this world. I really appreciate it. It was such a, magical experience to get to do that in VRChat. And so thank you guys so much for doing that. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did, and I hope you go try out the Devouring for yourself, especially seeing as it is Halloween time. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the Virtual Reality Show channel. Oh, and I'm also getting a TVRS studio built in VRChat to hold interviews like this one in, and anyone who joins my virtual VIP tier on Patreon will get to have their name on it permanently. I'm also going live on Twitch right now, so make sure you stop by there. Anyways, I've been your host, PHIA, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Special thanks to my October Patreon members and virtual VIPs, Dutech, Fukule, Private Donuts, Score Malin, and Top Waffle.